of this meetup. That's like, why didn't you come before? It was really good. All right. I don't know. Anyway, we run this every month. Always the third Monday of every month, and always here in this room at Capital Factory. And I'll probably say a couple more things about schedules and things in a couple of slides' time. But it's good there's lots of new people here, because if you had been here a few times, you would know exactly what I'm about to say, which is, if you leave here tonight with no other piece of information, and that's impossible because Karen will be providing you with lots of information to think about. The website address, austinblockchaincollective.com, because if you go there, you will find everything you need to know about blockchain in Austin. So we've got things there like a listing of the 120 blockchain and crypto companies with a presence here in Austin, and there's more coming. You will find a listing of all the meetups happening in Austin. You will find an education portal to links to educational resources, which we will tomorrow add your book to. You'll find other things there, but you'll find also links to our blog, our meetup group, our LinkedIn group, our Twitter feed, ATX Block Collect, and as one bit of information, if you use Twitter, and if when you're using Twitter you add the hashtag #AustinBlockchain, someone automatically, not quite automatic, sort of manually, but automatically for you, likes and retweets those tweets, unless they're stupid, in which case we won't. But you get instant amplification of your tweets by putting that hashtag on. So it's a great thing to do. So let's carry on. My name's Pete Harris, by the way. I co-founded the Austin Blockchain Collective about actually 2 years ago, almost to the day, and we actually got it officially launched at South by Southwest in 2018. But we've got a mission, and we've got a kind of approach to what we do, and it changes a bit. But this is kind of where we are at the moment. It's really to present Austin as a global centre for blockchain innovation, because we think it is, given that what's going on here with those 120 companies and other things that are happening. And we've kind of got a bottom-up approach to helping the community. So rather than kind of top-down and setting rules and procedures and the like, we work with lots of the companies here, both large ones and small ones, and other players like UT Austin, like Dell Medical School, like Capital Factory, like the City of Austin. And we help connect all those players together, and we help align them, and we help promote the ecosystem. And for some companies, we've helped them find staff, and for other companies, we've helped them collaborate, and for other companies, we've helped them win business, which is all a pretty useful thing to do when you're trying to grow an ecosystem. So that's kind of what we're about. Now it's actually, if you are if you work for a blockchain company, and that blockchain company just has a presence here in Austin, even if that's one person, business or technical, then you are automatically, the company is a member of the collective. And if you come to the website and you don't see your company listed, email us, because you should be. And it's free. But some companies, the ones with huge vision, have seen it, the way forward is to help us either in kind or financially to go about doing our business. So we call them either supporters or patrons. It's actually extremely inexpensive to be a supporter. it's a bit more expensive to be a patron, but we do some very tangible things for you if you're a patron. So if you're interested in learning more about those services, again, drop us an email. There's actually a good blog post about what it is to be a supporter, and I'm about to do one pointing to what it's like being a patron. But these are the companies that today helped us, and we'll probably be adding a couple more as we flip the year into 2020. So thank you to all of these companies. Thank you also to Capital Factory, where we are right now. We not only run our meetups here, and actually quite a few of the blockchain meetups in Austin are based here, but actually we're very happy to work with the Capital Factory sort of on an ongoing basis. They allow us to use their facilities really to act as a downtown headquarters for the collective. We work with them on some initiatives like Austin Startup Week, on their Innovation Council, and generally sort of helping them as they come across companies they want to invest in or bring into their accelerator, who are in the blockchain space or something related and need to sort of help and understand the community better. We work with them in that area as well. So it's a great partnership, which hopefully we'll be able to do more things with in 2020. What's this slide about? So this is the penultimate meetup of 2019. One more to come, December 16, which will be kind of a look forward to blockchain and crypto in 2020. I'm not sure exactly who's going to be participating in that. If you would like to participate in that, if you think you've got some view about where blockchain is going to be going in the next year, some wisdom to share, good or bad, about blockchain, I'd love to hear from you. We are going to include a South by Southwest preview in it, which we thought we were going to do last month, but they weren't really ready. But so we'll hear a bit about South by Southwest, what they're doing blockchain-wise, have someone from South by Southwest come along and do that, and we'll also be we're part of their sort of affiliate network, so we are actually able to offer discounts to our members and people who work for our members for tickets for 2020. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Meetups will continue in 2020 here in this room, third Monday of every month here at Capital Factory. And one other date, I say that it will be every month in 2020 apart from March, which is actually bang in the middle of South by Southwest. So we are not going to try and compete with that mayhem. We're going to take that one off. We may end up doing something social in a bar or something instead. But the other date to think about for 2020 is February 26th, 2020, when the collective is running its first conference, which is called Blockchain and Digital Transformation in Health. We're doing that in collaboration with Dell Medical School, already putting the program together of speakers, sponsors, partners. So that website there, Austin Blockchain Digital Health, is live. There are a few speakers listed. There'll be even more this week, and should be a great event. It's going to be somewhat uniquely for a blockchain healthcare event. It's going to include submissions both from academia and from industry. So Delmed is actually just issued their call for abstracts to the academic community to bring some in. We know we've got a couple at least coming in already, probably have 4 or 5 more, and we've already got interest from broadly the blockchain and healthcare industry, not just here in Austin, but also other places to come along and be part of that. So I'd love to see you. And again, we are offering discounts for attendees to people who work for collective members. I'm almost done, really. Shout outs. Yeah, so again, for those people new to this meetup, what I like to do at this point before we have our feature presentation is to ask anyone in the room whether you've got anything you want to say. Either get up and say what you're doing that you might need help with, or maybe you're looking for a job, or maybe you've seen something in the news you want to bring to people's attention, or maybe you run a meetup in blockchain or otherwise. This is your chance to tell the room about it, and also to the live webcast, which is being recorded. Who's got something for me? You've got something because you're looking for someone to work for you, haven't you?
Not quite.
Oh.
So.
You've got nothing to say to me?
You do a wonderful job.
Good, so do you. What do you do for a living?
I work for the city of Austin, putting together their blockchain. It's a secure, we're putting together a secure digital storage for important documents for people who are experiencing homelessness. We utilize blockchain in order to have a decentralized lookup for those stored documents.
Great, super, thank you. Who's next? Who's got another shout out? Martin, I'm sure you've got something to say. No? Nothing to say? What about your new deal you've got? A bit premature? Oh dear. I'm breaking news. Who's got one more for me to... I'm sure you're going to have something to say. Really, it's very quiet bunch today. Okay, well, I guess the upside of this is that Karen gets to speak sooner than later. All right, well, if anyone's got any more shout-outs after Karen's talked, and obviously we'll have time for questions, and there'll be answers, we'll hear from you then. Otherwise, I'm going to hand over to you, Karen. Let's bring your slides up. Okay. That's you. View. Does that work?
That works.
Good. Over to you. If the microphone dies, you've got another one over there.
Okay,
Great.
super. Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. It's nice to see so many new faces and some familiar faces coming back again. So I'm Karen Kilroy, and the reason that I'm doing this presentation tonight is because I just completed writing a short book for O'Reilly Media called Blockchain as a Service. The way that came about was I moderated a blockchain panel at South by Southwest earlier this year for Australia House. And did anybody go to that? Oh, cool. Yeah, that was neat. And we had a lot of people there at the Australia House panel. And someone from O'Reilly Media contacted me as a result of that and said, hey, you wanna write a blockchain book? And the first one, my experience with writing books has been I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth from it from a long time ago. You remember when the books used to be like so big that if you couldn't see out of your car very well, you could stick your computer books underneath you? Well, it's kind of changing now, and I think that's good because the information by the time you write an 800-page book, it's good. It's over. All that stuff is old news now, and plus the author is half dead by the time you write that much and go through all the rigmarole of having it checked. And the way I know this is because way back in the early days, shortly after stone tablets, when Pete Pete was around, there was something called OS2. And I don't know, who's heard of OS2? Yeah, yeah, that's old school. OS2 is an operating system that could, it could do backflips and handstands and everything else that Windows could never do and still can't do. And but IBM was at the reins, and so it kind of died a horrible flaming death. But I got asked by, it was IDG at the time, they said, oh, we want you to write a book called OS2 Warp Secrets. And oh, it's 800 pages. And I was like, well, I'd never done that before, but I'll tell you what, that was misery. And then Windows 95 came out, they canceled my book deal, and all I got to see was the pamphlet. So, yeah, it was bad. Now, this is to the new age. Now they give you a report to write, and they say, okay, we want 50 pages, and here's how much we'll give you for writing this book. And it's not like the old days where you have to hope someday the money falls out of the sky. So it's a whole different way of approaching things. Now, O'Reilly is the, you remember the books with the animals on them? On the front, the drawings, the cool drawings of the animal. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of animal I wanted, and then I found out I don't get one. But, you know, maybe someday, maybe someday I'll get to pick out an animal book. Get to have the cover. So our company, Kilroy Blockchain, we're here in Austin. My business partner, Lynn Riley, is up here in the front row. Say hi, Lynn. She and I met 2016, and we started Kilroy Blockchain. Prior to that, I was an e-commerce developer, which I've done for a long time, which I still continue to do to pay the bills. We started to see some of the cool things coming out, like at South by Southwest that IBM was demoing with the artificial intelligence stuff. And I found out that you could, with a few lines of JavaScript, you could write routines that would call things in the cloud that would do things like move hardware. Like they had a thing where you would put a net on your head. IBM had this, and you could train it with your thoughts, and then you could move a robot and tell it go, stop, or forward, backward, I think is what it was. And it was really, really cool. And the fact that you could do that with web programming skills is what was really appealing to me. And the reason you can do that is because they do a lot of the heavy lifting in the cloud. So you don't have to really know how all that stuff works. You kind of can learn it as you go along and build code samples. Let's see here. My company, we have a mission, and it seems kind of lofty. We really do try to do things that help to lead to better things happening in the world. Like if we're given a choice, okay, do you want to do something with an outcome that may help a group of people or help humanity overall, or not? We're going to pick the thing that where we're trying to do some good. We're hoping eventually that the thinking will turn in the industry to focus on doing good things first, and then that are also enjoyable for everyone else. Like, you know, as we get into brain-computer interfaces, there could be whole new interfaces. We'll stop using the 1975 UI and get into futuristic stuff. And maybe when that happens, we'll start to think of the people who need help the most first, and then also make it enjoyable for everyone else that's doing things like playing games. We have some partners. Our partners are really important to us as a very small company, Austin Blockchain Collective. Thank you, Pete, and thank you for giving me the chance today to speak to this group and tell them about the book. We also have a number of other partners, Austin Tech Alliance. It's kind of an underjoined group, I think. How many have even heard of Austin Tech Alliance? Yes, we have one, we have a few. It's like a I don't want to say political, but they're very involved in what happens as in the local politics as it affects the tech community, and there's not very many members. It's a really cool group, and the members are mostly really big names. The Austin Technology Incubator, we're involved with the University of Texas. We've had a lot of help from University of Texas and their Deep Tech Incubator as we've gone along. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I will mention 2 awards that we've won. We won the IBM Watson Build Challenge. My company did in 2017. You can download the app for free. It's called Riley, and Riley is actually short for real life adventure. It's just kind of a coincidence that name keeps coming up for us. But Riley is an app that you can use that helps people who are blind and visually impaired to get a description of what's around them using AI that's in the cloud, like I mentioned, and your smartphone. So like for instance, someone could take a picture of the room and it would say things like meeting room, people, chairs, color white of the walls, that type of thing. So if you want to see that app, it's free. We're hoping that someday that app will evolve to be used in the workforce. And not just for people who are blind and visually impaired, but overall to help solve the skills shortage, the knowledge gap that there's a global skills shortage. There's not enough people to do like the semi-skilled jobs. And AI can help someone be guided through that just by using visual recognition and text-to-speech, speech-to-text, that type of thing. The second thing that I mentioned here is our affiliation with the National Science Foundation. That was also through involvement with the University of Texas. We won a grant, a research grant, where we traveled the country to research ways to use blockchain and AI to help reduce deaths caused by traffic accidents. And that is still something that is in the works. So about the report. I mentioned that it wasn't real super long. I think they told me 35 pages. I wrote 70, but they were happy with that. It breaks down into about 7 chapters. And one of the things that's really cool is it's free. So you can log on to O'Reilly.com and you can read it for free. They have you sign up, but they don't require a credit card. A lot of places that you work may already have a subscription. Like I know my friends at IBM could log on and read it without any problem at all. And this is really fresh news. This whole report was just finished a few weeks ago. It was published on my birthday, which was fun. So what we cover in the book, we found that there's still a lot of questions about what is blockchain. And so that's one of the things we hit on, and I'll get into that a little more. We talk about what exactly is blockchain as a service when you hear that term. How to plan your own use case, how to think about your architecture, what other people are doing right now as far as the blockchain as a service offerings, what you can choose from. And then blockchain as a service use cases, and finally we talk about just some things in general about using blockchain as a service, and including like how hardware is impacted, and also some things that'll happen in the future, we think. So I don't know if anybody remembers the skit. Anybody know who that is? First of all, who is that? It's Chevy Chase, thank you. This was the Shimmer dessert topping, and the way that the skit went was, is it a dessert topping or is it a floor wax? Well, it's a dessert topping and it's a floor wax. And I encourage you to look this up if you if you want to have a good laugh. It's a funny little fake commercial. But that's kind of how blockchain has been approached. Like, oh, is it a dessert topping or is it a floor wax? Well, yes, it's a dessert topping and it's a floor wax. It really depends on who you're talking to, on what the story is. There's a lot of projects that go really deep down the rabbit hole, and people assume you already know what they're talking about, and maybe you don't. So there's a lot of things that need to be clarified with what is blockchain. Now, I asked a lot of people questions when I wrote this report because, I thought, well, I really do know a lot of experts. So why don't I ask some of them what they think instead of just trying to write this all myself? So Pete Harris, this is his definition of blockchain. Blockchain is a distributed ledger technology. Okay, that part is really important. That supports immutable, shared, replicated data sets, which are maintained in accordance with an agreed consensus mechanism. Okay, that's a good definition. That's a good start, and that gets us down the road to, okay, well, what is blockchain? So let's go a little further than that. So if blockchain is a distributed ledger technology, then that gets us pretty darn far down the road, right? Okay, it is a floor wax. Yeah, I'll give you that, right? It's a floor wax, but it's also a dessert topping. So it's because it's a distributed ledger technology, there's characteristics that distributed ledger technologies have. And one of them is they're distributed. Another one is they're a ledger, right? So we don't need to explain that over and over when we're talking about blockchain. Okay, so what's blockchain? What exactly makes it blockchain? Well, it's the linked blocks. It's the blocks in a chain. It's the fact that each block is chained to the previous block through a cryptographic hash that's unique to the contents of that block. If the contents of the block are changed, then the hash changes, right? It won't compute to the same thing unless it's the same algorithm, the same key, and the same contents. So what that means, does it mean you can never, ever, ever go in and change that stuff? No, it really doesn't. Because if I have it on my computer and I feel like diving into the file system, yeah, I can change it. But the thing is it will never ever compute to that same hash again. So it will break. Everything will just break, and you can't you can't continue to add the chain of blocks the way it was, because every block knows what was in the previous block. You can't trick it. And then also, too, because it's a distributed ledger technology, there's usually multiple copies of it as well. So there's also a lot more detail in the book. And like I said, I was really, really lucky to know so many smart people who helped me. Besides Pete, one of the people that helped me was Todd Little. He's blockchain architect for Oracle. He helped me extensively in getting the description of what is blockchain, what's behind the scenes in blockchain as a service. He also was kind enough to proofread the whole book for me. He did the technical check, and so did Keith Guidry of Sawblade Ventures, who's not here tonight. He's local, though. So we talk about, okay, how is blockchain implemented? There's really three basic ways. You can download a blockchain platform and do it yourself. You can build everything yourself, DIY. You figure out how to run your nodes, how to distribute your nodes, how to assign your IDs, how to manage your disk space, how to do things like scale. So that's a blockchain platform. Blockchain as a service is kind of a different level. When you have blockchain as a service, and we'll go through the whole big list of what makes it blockchain as a service, but with blockchain as a service, it's kind of like you can trust that they're going to handle everything. And not everything, because you're still building an application, and you're still responsible for the architecture, and you're still responsible for the security, but you're not responsible for every tiny little piece of everything, knowing what security updates go where, and making sure that all the ports are locked down the way they're supposed to be, and on and on. So we'll talk about what the difference is there. Now, the third way that's becoming really popular, I had to kind of think of what to call it, is it's software as a service with blockchain. So it's a software as a service. If you didn't know it had blockchain, you wouldn't need to know it had blockchain, because you don't have to know anything about blockchain to use it. So it's kind of like a Salesforce, where you log in, you pay a monthly fee, and it uses blockchain. So we'll talk about those as well. Okay, so just to recap, a blockchain platform is really a set of tools and concepts. So you can build it from the ground up. You can build your blockchain from the ground up. Like Hyperledger Fabric is a blockchain platform. Ethereum is a blockchain platform. Now, blockchain platforms are the basis for blockchain as a service. So some group somewhere, maybe IBM, maybe Oracle, maybe SAP, took something like Hyperledger and said, wow, this is really cool, and here's how we can make it so our customers can use it. And so they build it into a service to where now you can log on and use it like you use many of the other things from that supplier. So let's go on. So when you're thinking about blockchain, you think, okay, well, do I even need blockchain? And we'll talk about some ways to determine that. Do I need blockchain as a service? And if I do need blockchain as a service, maybe I'm Ford, maybe I'm General Motors, or maybe I'm Starbucks, and maybe I might want to build my own blockchain. And then build my own blockchain as a service for my own customers. Or maybe I want to build my own software as a service with blockchain, so they don't even have to think about blockchain. And just use blockchain for what we need it for, which is to prove if something's been tampered with or not, right? We know that's what makes blockchain different. So when I first start to analyze a blockchain use case, normally what I'll do is break it down into three main things: participants, assets, and transactions. So it's like, okay, if I've got people, first of all, the participants is who's going to use the system, who is involved, and what systems are involved. So I may have something like where I've got a farm, and then there's a distributor, and the farm sells eggs and brings them to the distributor. And then the distributor happens to be Whole Foods, but they can't sell them as local if they come from more than 50 miles. I just made all that up. Sounds like I know what I'm talking about, right? but the fact is that if they can prove that they haven't brought those from further than 50 miles, then they can sell them at a higher price. So in this case, this is a decent blockchain application because you've got multiple participants. You don't just have one participant. It's not just Whole Foods. It's Whole Foods and the farmer and also the trucker, the logistics company. And one of the participants might be the system at Whole Foods as opposed to a person at Whole Foods. And then you've got assets. Well, the assets might be the eggs, but it also might be the bill of lading. Another asset might be the mileage on the truck. when the eggs are picked up and when they're dropped off. And then the transactions would be when something happens, like, okay, so these eggs have been picked up, and here was the mileage, and boom, here's the transaction. These eggs have been delivered, here's the mileage, boom, here's the transaction. Okay, now you can forever prove. You could write that out to a consumer app where the consumer can scan the QR code and say, look, yeah, these eggs came 43 miles. You know, and they know that they're not getting ripped off. So that's an example of a blockchain app. An example of something that isn't a blockchain app is just one entity wanting to know one piece of information. Oh yeah, do we have any eggs? Oh no, we have eggs. Okay, you know, that's like an inventory app. That's probably not blockchain, but it could be. Okay. This next couple of slides talk about the advantages of going with blockchain as a service as opposed to taking a blockchain platform and building your own application on top of it. Ease of distribution, lower total cost of ownership. And what that means is you really don't have to hire that big staff and train that big team that would know all that systems stuff that you would have to know, that knowledge and experience, because blockchain is different even than like a basic web app, and then it takes some understanding of networks and how networks work, because it's peer-to-peer. And most developers aren't used to working with programming peer-to-peer applications. They're more used to programming client-server. Everything just goes back and forth. So it's really good to have that team involved that you get with a blockchain as a service. Let's see, it's low risk because it's subscription based. The patching, upgrading, monitoring, all that is there to help you along. And a lot of these things are true for any cloud type service over trying to host everything yourself. You know, it's just, yeah. The nodes would be distributed via the blockchain as a service, yeah. So, yes, that's the ease of distribution. Yes, yes. Okay, bursts, so you can manage the like I mentioned, scaling the transaction volume. So, you know, if you start out this little egg blockchain and next thing you know, Whole Foods wants to use it in every one of their stores or every one of their distributors around the country, then it could be that you'd hit a volume thing real quick. And it's nice to have one of the bigger companies in your back pocket to say, hey, help me out with this. We're going national. Let's see. There's a lot of APIs. And there's a lot of APIs written already for popular software. So SAP is one example. So SAP actually has their own blockchain as a service. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around having blockchain as a service. So as a service, as the name implies, you know, it's a logistics as a service enabled by blockchain. Now, as a service offering, usually it's a subscription model. And you have all these players in your ecosystem. Like, who pays for it? And when you don't pay your bill, what happens? What happens to the data? Do you kick everybody off, or do you just kick one person off? Like, how does that all work out?
Oh, yeah, those are all really good questions. And the way that IBM builds it is you would, as a central administrator would set up the nodes for all of the participating organizations. So there is a central point right there where so it's not completely decentralized in that sense. It would matter probably how the consortium that was doing the blockchain application had figured on paying their dues and their fees. You know, it could be that someone big like a Starbucks could go on to IBM, set up blockchain as a service, and then it charges its participants $5,000 a year to be in the consortium, and that, you know, that gets used to pay it. So there's a lot of different ways you could figure it out. Yeah, good question.
So basically, you lose your data if you can't pay the bill. So is it immutable at that point, or?
Well, that's a good question. You know, it's it is as immutable as anything that you don't pay the storage on, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, and it would be possible to, I'm sure it would be possible to have blockchain that was not in the cloud as part of this, as part of a system, as a fail-safe. You could have a node that was not cloud-based. But again, you know, that's all architecture. So, but the way that most of the blockchain platforms are written is they're really super modular. So like the consensus algorithm is separate from the way that the world state database is constructed. And all the pieces are separate. The ordering service is another thing that's separate that can be switched out. So it's really kind of like a modular thing, and you could invent your own system that works kind of the way you want it to. Okay. Security, I mentioned it briefly, but just because it is blockchain doesn't mean it's secure. It can still be hacked. The big difference is that you can prove it. And with a lot of things today, there's no way to prove whether something's been tampered with or not. I mean, it's occurred to me lately that there's really no way to prove who wrote things as far as developers go. It's kind of a scary world, but even with all that, you still need to go through all your basic security stuff. You can't assume that it's secure. You have to make sure your team understands it. Immutability versus privacy. We talked about how on blockchain, once a block is written, we didn't really talk about it, but once a block is written, that's it. It's written. It's forever, and because it's in the chain, right, and it's got the hash of the previous block, and the next block has its hash, so it's forever. So that kind of makes a quandary when we're talking about GDPR data, which is GDPR is a European law that requires that everyone be able to delete themselves. You have to be able to change your own data or delete yourself. And so that's obviously in direct conflict with blockchain. So I asked some people about that. You know, what do you do in that case? And what they do is store the data off chain that you need to be able to change later. And then you store the proof of the data or the link to that data on the blockchain. So then you can find that data through that information, but then it could be that will end up being orphaned because someone has changed it and it's no longer valid. When something gets changed in blockchain, you never go in and change blockchain because, like I said, the hashes won't work. So you would always write that type of an application by something that added additional blocks. So if, yeah, I think there's a question back there.
Comment a little bit on like public versus private blockchains in this context here also.
Sure.
Privacy, got me thinking about not just privacy, but also private blockchains.
Yeah, public versus private.
Is it a good analogy, like back in the day, kind of, you know, whether it was going to be TCP versus Ethernet way back when, you know, what was going to win out, but, you know, whether the internet was going to be public and private, kind of comment on that general, this idea of public and private.
I think that public and private blockchain has really kind of two separate purposes. the public blockchain, the whole premise of blockchain is once somebody joins, you can trust them. So and the whole premise of something being public is anyone can join it. So, that might not always line up, right? So what we're seeing in the business world is they want to be able to trust the people in the network. So there's going to be some type of vetting going on before a group joins something like IBM Food Trust. It may be a really simple vetting. It may even be an automatic vetting. One of the most interesting things that I ran across in my research was something that Dun & Bradstreet's doing. Who's heard of Dun & Bradstreet? Yeah, a lot of people. Well, Dun & Bradstreet does real-world credit checks on businesses, and they'll even go so far as to knock on your door and say, yeah, okay, he's real. We saw him. It takes a long time to get approved through Dun & Bradstreet. Well, they're doing a blockchain service that taps into their DUNS database, which has all this years and years and years of information on everybody. And they're making it so that blockchain can interact with things like the blockchain in the IBM Know Your Supplier system, which is a software as a service with blockchain. But it can actually interact with that. So when someone comes in and joins the network, they can automatically be vetted by Dun & Bradstreet through a blockchain oracle, which is a service that goes back and forth between the smart contract and the and in the blockchain, yeah. But there's that word blockchain oracle that has nothing to do with Oracle Corporation, so it's just to make it extra confusing. But long story short, there's going to be public blockchains that anyone can join, and then there's going to be lots and lots of different variations of that, levels of security and vetting based on what the purpose is. But the whole point is, once you're in it, you should be able to be trusted. Okay, standalone versus integrated workflow. One of the things that I thought was really confusing when I very first started using blockchain stuff is I would see that they would have these apps written that you could download, and it was kind of like this Node.js JavaScript app thing, and had some little clients that they wrote and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, here's the blockchain application. But then you'd look at it and go, well, wait a minute, where's the user administration? Where's the security? Where's the 900 other things that aren't in this little simple web-based system? So started thinking about it more and realizing that most of the applications aren't going to be like that at all. Most of them are going to be integrated workflow with other applications that already exist. So if, let's say, for instance, Whole Foods has a customer service application, and they want to make it so someone can tell when whether those eggs are local or not, right? They want to know for sure before they put that sign out. The rep should be able to hit a button, get the validation of that block, have it pop up on his or her screen, and know right there, okay, yep, that's valid. They don't have to know why. They don't care. They just care that it's valid. Their boss says it's valid. The system says it's valid, so it's valid. So, that's an example of like an integrated workflow where you're not thinking about the fact, hey, that we're using blockchain. And then blockchain is in the background doing its job, right? It's just doing what it's supposed to do, which is allowing you to validate whether things have been tampered with or not. Okay. We talked about security. We talked about this, I think. Let's see. Yeah, this is really the essence. This is worth repeating. That the way to tell if blockchain's been tampered with or not is to recompute the hash. You can't take a hash and compute it backwards and figure out that, oh, that was a picture of a big blue sky with the sunshine, right? You can't, that's impossible. But what you can do is recompute it and say, oh, wait a minute, this number doesn't match anymore. Let's check this picture. Oh, look, someone has changed it. It's not the same anymore. So that's kind of the essence of the whole thing. If you don't need to be able to do that, you probably don't need blockchain. You might need some other type of distributed ledger application, or maybe even a centralized database. Okay, we talked about this. Large BaaS providers. AWS came late to the party, and they have templates is what they offer. AWS blockchain templates. So it's quite a bit different than what IBM and Oracle have done, but it helps you set up the blockchain platform using the AWS resources without having to completely understand everything. It'll guide you through it. IBM, Oracle, SAP, and Dun & Bradstreet we've talked about. There's lots of other BaaS providers. Yeah.
So, you distinguishing again between blockchain platforms, blockchain as a service, software as a service, not blockchain. So, with these being examples of blockchain as a service providers, what are they? Do they each have their own blockchain platforms? Are they running on Ethereum, or how can you talk a little about
Yeah.
the platforms of these providers?
They are, and you made me realize I forgot Microsoft. Oops. I forgot Microsoft. Is that Windows 95 book, I'm still bitter. But no, anyway, yeah, they, like Microsoft uses Ethereum, and they've built their platform on Ethereum. They were, I think, one of the very first. I think they came out right before IBM came out with Hyperledger. Blockchain as a service, I think. Yeah, Microsoft went Ethereum, IBM, SAP, and Oracle have all gone Hyperledger.
If you're running ultimately a software as a service on a blockchain, is there ever a need or use case from a business perspective, like if you need one application that's maybe built on one platform to be able to talk to another on another platform? Is that possible? Or
Yes.
so whether it's Ethereum or Hyperledger need, at some point, it doesn't really matter from a business application level. Is that right?
No, it doesn't. There would be ways to connect it. Yep. So good questions. Yeah. Let's see here. And also, too, there's I mentioned there's dozens of other smaller providers. These are just the big ones. But it all entails the same thing. You take a blockchain platform, and then you make it easier to use by making it a platform as a service. These are some blockchain use cases that are pretty interesting. And these all, I believe they all built their first offerings, if not continuously on blockchain as a service. Everledger was probably the oldest one that I heard of. It was done by in Australia, and it was to validate that diamonds. Diamond mining was not done in using child labor, and that the diamonds had not been tampered with, and that and they're able to prove that the diamond that was shipped was the same one that's received, and it was also used for insurance to make sure that there wasn't fraud with insurance. So Everledger, it's been 4 years ago maybe, Everledger started up, and it's still going strong. Everledger is a really successful blockchain project. CargoSmart, this one is the Oracle collaboration, and what they do in CargoSmart is make sure that documentation for import exports with shipping are all in order and recorded on blockchain. Let's see, the trust your supplier I mentioned with the, that's one that Dun & Bradstreet is involved with, but that's the kind of thing where IBM has many, many suppliers. I forget how many, it's something like 60,000, some crazy number, and there's no way they can know who everybody is. So they built the system to help them be able to automatically trust someone if they're in the system. Xbox was interesting one. Xbox, Microsoft used the Microsoft platform or blockchain as a service to redo the way they paid royalties. And they were able, and this was for Xbox game writers, and they were able to reduce the time it took to pay the royalties by so much that they were able to reassign many staff members to other jobs, other customer service jobs. So it was a big impact for them, and the developers got paid quicker. Using blockchain as a service, some of the things that are important here, let's see, creating living partnerships. I think this is maybe one of the most important takeaways if your company is thinking about doing something with blockchain, is it really takes a big team to implement blockchain correctly, because you're not just talking about hardware and software and computer stuff. You're talking about the actual logic that drives the business, the smart contracts, how that business works. I mean, the very simplified example I gave you was, if the mileage, if the odometer when it starts and when it ends is more than 50 miles, then the eggs aren't local, right? But that type of logic, of course, goes really deep. And, there's even some discussion, okay, a lot of times people don't know what's in their contracts with the companies that they deal with all the time. And the day-to-day person who deals with the contract may just do it however, they fly by the seat of their pants because they don't have the whole thing memorized. So blockchain's going to change the way that some things work in that regard. There's going to be less, it was 53 miles, but that's all right. That won't fly with blockchain because the system will kick it out. So it's really, really important that the smart contracts are worked on by the legal teams and the business people, and that the logic is then given to the developers rather than the developers trying to say, okay, all right, what's the logic? I'm ready, what's the logic? So it's a commitment, right? Because as your business changes, your business logic's going to change, your contract's going to change, new people that you work with. And the IT team that's doing the implementation is still going to need help. So that's a big way to think about it. And also to the partners that you end up with. I remember, a long time ago, for years, we've talked about, okay, how do we make a successful partnership? A lot of times you'll talk about things with another company and then they never go anywhere. And, oh man, it's really too bad we can't get this off the ground because it feels like there's some energy here. But if you do something with blockchain, I think it's gonna help cement that, because now you've got a system that's similar to EDI, only it's serving business logic. The last point I want to touch on here is blockchain and hardware. And one of the things that Keith Guidry of Sawblade Ventures has been working on is a way to make chips so you cannot tamper with the registers of the chip to mess with blockchain addresses. So it's beyond what I understand. But what I do understand after hearing the conversations going back and forth between Keith and Todd Little is that if you use a blockchain as a service, you've got a better chance of those hardware problems being looked after, because they're always upgrading the hardware and going after any kind of vulnerabilities. So that was that point. And to conclude, Blockchain as a service makes blockchain a whole heck of a lot easier to implement. And that's just a fact. It's going to cost a little bit more because the other stuff is free. But it's going to take so many of the headaches away and get you farther faster that it's probably going to be worth it. There's many consortiums coming up. And they all have, many of them have software as a service with blockchain. So it could be that your industry, you don't need to build any of this. It could be that you could just find one that's already made, go sign up, become a trusted partner, and have a business network to work with, which, would be pretty darn nice. The other chance is that you'll have to do that. The Cargo Smart stuff, I talk about it in the book. They did a really good job putting together the consortium when they started working together. There was a whole big group of companies, and they did a very formalized thing where they signed a letter of intent, and then they all delivered the things they promised, and eventually they had a blockchain network. So it's not automatic and easy because it does take multiple partners for it to make sense. But I think that it could be well worth it in the long run. Let's see. The last thing is the book is free to read. You can log on to O'Reilly Media and read it. And if you do, I'd really appreciate it if you give me like a review or a rating or something. I haven't gotten any feedback other than from the brains who reviewed it for me. But thank you very much. Yeah.
I have a quick question about security.
Yeah.
You kind of brushed over it earlier. So blockchain is usually touted as like a hardened, secure platform, in terms of crypto and whatnot. But it sounds like you don't necessarily agree with that statement.
No.
The question was centered around what are known vulnerabilities, and then what are considered best practices in your mind for securing the network.
Well, I mean, it depends on how it's served out, but known vulnerabilities are file system. It runs in the file system. There's also a database, which you can't access the database directly, but the bigger risk is a hack to the file system and someone actually changing the contents through tampering with the data. The blockchain will the files are as secure as files would be for anything else. Same thing with the network. It's a peer-to-peer network. It's going to be subject to any of the same vulnerabilities or attempts to hack as any other network. The main difference is that you can prove that something's been changed. That's the difference with blockchain. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think there's going to be, over the long term, more, commercial use cases in public permissionless blockchains, like Ethereum, or or Hyperledger and sort of permission private blockchains? Where do you sort of see the industry drifting? I know you mentioned mostly Hyperledger, but I just want to get your perspective.
I see that. I think that in applications for individuals, like if there were a universal identification system for people who ran meetups, that type of thing would be a public application most likely, because it's going to be anybody could come into that. Yeah, anybody could sign up to do that. As opposed to if it's people who make threads on screws, and maybe there's only 10,000 companies in the United States that are qualified to do a certain type of a bolt. In that case, you're going to want to invite them and make sure that someone's vetted them, and that, this company is real and it's not some overseas place doing stamping that's not precision, that type of thing. You could really vet that down and get those qualifications down in a private network. Now, it could be a hybrid where maybe you don't know every manufacturer. Maybe it's not something as specialized, and it's something that anybody could jump into the game in. Maybe it's, consultants or something like that. That way, and that type of a network, you could make it, permissioned, but anybody could ask for permission. And maybe there's systems like the Dun & Bradstreet system, only a different type of system that vets them to see if they're real. Yeah. So the whole point, though, is that once somebody's in the network, you should be able to trust them, at least with whatever that network does.
On the permission ones.
Anyone, really, even the public ones, you don't want to, you want to make it so whatever they can do is something that once somebody's on there, you've got enough information to know who they are, and now they can do certain things within the perimeter of what you allow. I think that's kind of how to think of it. Yeah.
When you were writing this book, what animal did you wish was on the cover?
Long-tailed Mexican bat. What else? I mean, really, you had to ask.
How are you billed for these, and what would be like a service level agreement that we would pay attention to? We're shopping around.
Sure.
Month costs or.
Yeah, they bill, there's a lot of ways that it's billed. It's like per node, per transaction. And let's see, do you remember all the billing, the ways that they do it? I know you have to, they do it per node, and then there's a per transaction fee. And that's it, okay.
Yeah, because nodes determine the number of peers.
Yeah, and every organization has to have 2 nodes, at least on IBM's implementation of Hyperledger. I don't know all the details of why, but if you're interested, they sit down and price it with you. They have like a pricing calculator thing. So it depends on how many organizations and what kind of traffic.
Okay, and what SLAs would you expect for them? Is like how fast it's done, or how latency, how throughput?
I think it's pretty standard. They say, here's what it does. I think they do it by number of nodes. And I haven't looked recently. Yeah, I think it's, I don't think they have different levels for speed, at least not yet. Now, they may have like bursting and things that they do. It could be that there's other hardware level charges that come over when you burst. Yeah.
Is it still Wild West? Because when you tell me I have to manage the number of nodes, then I'm like, why? I thought that was the service. Why do I need to know about nodes?
Yeah, you'd need when you sign. Yeah, it's still, there's still some admin, hands-on. Okay, now we're adding another supplier to our blockchain, so now we're going to have to add that on. And that's because we're using a blockchain as a service. Now, it could be that you could have your programmers build that stuff programmatically, so it would just happen in the background, and you don't actually need to go into IBM's cloud control panel and add a node. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Are there different consensus mechanisms?
Yes.
What do you
There's a lot of different consensus mechanisms. There's the proof of work, which is the one that is commonly used with cryptocurrency, and that's where you hear that there's miners racing to solve a cryptographic puzzle in return for a prize. There's proof of stake. There's proof of oh gosh, here we go. Proof. There's proof of authority.
Specifically in these blockchain as a service offerings that you looked at, was there something that was?
They're all proof of authority. They're all done based on, hey, I know you're authorized. Hey, I know you're authorized. You're authorized. So if the 3 of you agree, we have consensus. Boom. There's no miners solving cryptographic puzzles. Yeah.
One of the issues, since these networks are proof of authority
it's much more scalable to have proof of authority than the proof of work, because the proof of work requires a lot of transactions, a lot of traffic, and the proof of authority is much lower. It's like, okay, you're in charge. Yes, some administrator somewhere says you're authorized, so you are. And then you can set up the consensus based on you set it up ahead of time. It could be that the whole group doesn't have to agree, but maybe 3 out of 6 have to agree. And then the block is posted to blockchain.
So transaction times and throughput, roughly, I mean, I guess it depends.
I believe that transaction times and throughputs would be much, much better with a non-cryptocurrency application, because there's so much less going on. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I'll hand it back to Pete. Thank you so much. It was really nice, you guys, to listen to all this.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen, for that. It's great to hear from you, and good luck with the book. And the website where you can read it is up there, and we'll be plugging that in on the collective website and in the education portal. And also we'll be including it in the next few weekly blogs, which are on the blog, which you find via the website. So austinblockchaincollective.com is a useful thing to go away with. This meeting should have been live streamed and should have been recorded. So hopefully you'll be able to check that out. I generally find the link on the YouTube and post that back into the meetup group page. And you're okay with sharing the slides? Oh yeah. Good. And we'll put the slides up and do a link to that as well. So thanks all for coming. Great to see so many people here. We've been getting some good turnouts. Remember next month, December 16th, when we'll be peering into 2020. And if anyone wants to help me do that, you're more than welcome. Send me a message via the website. Thanks a lot. Safe trip back, and see you around. Take care.